Hey up everyone, welcome back to the Rugby League History channel. Today on the channel I'll be doing my tips and predictions for round 21 of the 2025 NRL season. Last week it were a pretty good round for myself. I got 5 out of 8 correct. Maybe if things were a bit different could have got 6 or 7 out of 8 correct. But let's see how many I get right this week. The first match is on Thursday night. It's between Sydney Roosters and Melbourne. This one's being played at the new SFS. Sydney Roosters in 10th at the moment, Melbourne 3rd on the table. In the last few meetings that these two sides have had, Melbourne have dominated the fixture. They've won the last 6 matches in a row against Eastern Suburbs. Both of these sides come into the match with a loss, and as I've said earlier and throughout most of my videos this year, whenever Melbourne lose a game, they normally come out the week after and batter the opposition. I don't think it's going to be the case on this occasion, but Melbourne rarely lose 2 matches in a row. So for that reason, I think it's going to be a 1-12 scoreline. I think that this might be a bit tighter of an affair than most people will give it credit for, but I'm going to go for Melbourne to win by 1-12 points. First match on Friday is between North Queensland and St George. This one's being played at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. North Queensland are 13th on the table at the moment, St George 11th. In recent times, North Queensland's had a good record against St George. They've won the last 5 matches in a row against them in the league. The last time St George had a win over North Queensland were in round 2 of the 2021 NRL season. And some of the wins that North Queensland have had over St George in the last 5 meetings have been by quite big margins. I think on every occasion they've scored more than 30 points against them, so they certainly like playing against St George. Last week North Queensland had a disappointing loss against Redcliffe. I'm sure Wobbling Jaw Sports was writing out a very impassioned letter to the North Queensland club, something along the lines of, "Dear Todd Payton, this is Wobbling Jaw Sports. I'm a big North Queensland fan and you've let me down massively over the weekend." As for St George, they had a heartbreaking loss against Canterbury. Even a lot of Canterbury fans said that St George were the better team for most parts of that game. And in the last 2 minutes they conceded a try in the corner which sunk them in the end. And I mean, that's really heartbreaking, especially with the last couple of weeks St George have had. They put in a really good effort against Canterbury and they come up short. So no doubt that the players would have been absolutely devoured after losing a game like that. I think with this match though, I'm going to go for North Queensland to win this game. Not sure if it's going to be 13 plus, but I'm going to go for North Queensland to win the match by 1-12 points. And the main match on the Friday is between Brisbane and Parramatta. This one's being played at Suncorp Stadium, or for your older audiences out there, Lang Park. Brisbane are currently sat 5th on the table at the moment, Parramatta in 16th on the table. Brisbane have won their last 4 matches in a row in the league against Parramatta. Last week, Parramatta had a 40 points to 16 loss against Canberra. Now, in the prediction video, I said that Parramatta would lose by about 24 or 30 points. But it's not a scoreline that actually reflects how the game went, because with 7 minutes left, Parramatta were losing 22 points to 16. And they also led at half time. And I was looking at some of the highlights of the game, and they made a few line breaks where maybe if there was a bit more commitment from the Parramatta players, they could have scored a couple of extra tries. But it's not a scoreline that reflects the actual way that the game went. It's just the last 7 minutes, Canberra put on 3 or 4 quick tries and won, but they were right into their eyeballs with that game, Parramatta. So they go into this match against a Brisbane side who are red hot at the moment. They've won 5 matches in a row in the league. And they're also coming against a Brisbane side who come into this match off the bye. So it's going to be a really tough ask for Parramatta to go up to Suncorp on Friday and play a team which has been rested for over a week. I think with this match, I can see Brisbane winning it by at least, well, I'm going to go 13 plus, but I reckon that they could probably win by about 20 to 30 points, like what I said last week. I think with Parramatta, what they've got to be careful of is the for and against. I mean, even if they do lose this game, which I think they will, they have to try to keep that winning margin from Brisbane down to a respectable amount. Because if Gold Coast manage to win this weekend, then Parramatta's bottom of the table. So I'm going to go for Brisbane to win this match by 13 plus. First match on Super Saturday is between New Zealand and Gold Coast. This one's being played at Mount Smart Stadium, New Zealand 4th on the table, Gold Coast bottom of the table. The last 2 times that New Zealand's played against Gold Coast, they've lost, and the last encounter these 2 sides had, Gold Coast recorded their biggest ever score, ever, and that goes for any incarnation of the Gold Coast since 1988. I think they won by memory 66 points to 6 against New Zealand, and the last 2 times that they've travelled to Mount Smart Stadium, they've won both occasions, and both of them have been very narrow by at least 4 points or less. Both of these sides had very narrow games last week, but for different opposite ends of the coin, you could say. For New Zealand, they had, well, how can you describe that win that they had, where it looked like they were dead and buried, and then right on the bell, they score a try to win the game. And as for Gold Coast, they played a lot better against West Tigers, but once again they fell short. Lost in very heartbreaking circumstances. I think it was a drop goal by Adam Dewey with at least 10 seconds left on the clock, and they lose that game. And I mean, when you're at the bottom of the table, you just don't have any luck, do you? And I mean, if you're a Gold Coast player, how do you respond after losing like that? That must be really tough to lose a game like that, and you're still at the bottom of the table. You put in all that effort, and you still come away with a loss. So both of these sides coming into this game having different experiences from last week. Who do I think is going to win this game though? Obviously New Zealand at home is going to be very tough to beat. Gold Coast are going to be absolutely desperate. The men from the Glitter Strip, the bottom of the table at the moment, they'll be trying everything to get off the bottom of the table. They know if they can get a win and they're for and against us slightly better, they could overtake Parramatta and maybe South Sydney. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm going to go for New Zealand to win this game by 112 points. Second match on Super Saturday is between Penrith and West Tigers. This one's being played at Western Sydney Stadium. Penrith 6th on the table at the moment, and West Tigers 12th on the table at the moment. In recent years, Penrith have dominated this fixture. Occasionally West Tigers have got a win against them, but most of the time it's Penrith who win this game. I did a video on this fixture earlier in the year about how some people talk as this matches have been a potential rivalry game. You can go check that out. But with Penrith, they're once again resurgent. 6 wins in a row coming to this match. Another win over the weekend, this time against South Sydney. With West Tigers, they had that narrow win over the Gold Coast, just as I mentioned. It's a win which I think will give the playing group an enormous confidence boost. It'll take the pressure slightly off Benji Marshall. But going into this match, I think it's going to be another tough one for West to try to overcome. They're up against the Penrith side, who are red hot, who are resurgent, as I mentioned, who are playing a lot better. They seem to have hit a good vein of form at the right time of the year. So for this one, I'm going to go for Penrith to win this game by 112 points. Maybe West Tigers could spring another upset, but I'm going to go for Penrith to win this one. And the third match on Super Saturday is between South Sydney and Cronulla Sutherland. This one's being played at Central Coast Stadium. Cronulla Sutherland are 8th on the table at the moment, and South Sydney are 15th on the table. If you watch my recent short video, I talk about South Sydney and how I say that they're in a crisis at the moment. The club's lost 7 matches in a row. They've got a mountain injury toll, especially with some key players that are going to be out for a while that won't be back anytime soon. And just some of the matches that they've played and how they've lost, it's just alarming. So given how they're playing and how results might happen this weekend, Gold Coast might win, Parramatta might win, South City could be bottom of the table come the end of round 21. And with Cronulla, they've turned the corner again. They look like a club that might be on the up. They've strung a couple of wins together after, falling in with a bit of a hole. So this is going to be an interesting game. Can Cronulla carry on how they've been playing? Can South Sydney stop a 7-game losing streak? We'll have to wait and see. For this match though, I think that if Cronulla can show up and play to their ability, I think South Sydney will really struggle in this game to contain Cronulla. So I'll go for Cronulla to win this match by 112 points. I don't think it's going to be 13 plus, so I'll go 112. And the first match on Sunday is between Canberra and Newcastle. This one's being played at Bruce Stadium in Canberra. Canberra first on the table at the moment, and Newcastle in 14th on the table. These two sides met earlier in the year where Canberra were in front pretty comfortably in that game, and then they let Newcastle come back in, and Newcastle almost stole it in the end. These two sides coming into the fixture, Canberra won, I wouldn't say it convincingly. As I said earlier in the video, it was 22-16 against Parramatta with 7 minutes left to go, and then they scored 2 or 3 quick tries and ran away with it in the end. But with Newcastle, how do you explain that loss? Heartbreaking, devastating. I imagine if you're a Newcastle supporter, you'd be thinking, how do we lose that in such a heartbreaking fashion? Because Newcastle actually, from what I've seen on the highlights, they played quite well, and they come up short yet again. And no doubt, especially Newcastle supporters like ZTank99, they'd be on suicide watch after that game, I swear down. Who do I think is going to win this game though? I'm going to go for Canberra to win by 13 plus. I think when you lose a game like that, the way Newcastle did it, either galvanises you or destroys the playing group even further. And I don't see how Newcastle's going to bounce back after losing like that. So I'm going to go for Canberra to win by 13 plus. And the final match to close out the round is between Canterbury Bankstown and Manly Warringah. This one's being played at the new SFS. I don't know if that's a typo or not, but that's what I've got on the app that I get all my stuff from. So with Canterbury Bankstown, they're sat second on the table at the moment, and Manly Warringah are in 7th. With Manly Warringah, they really shocked me. Last week, I didn't really give them much of a hope against Melbourne, and they went down there and they got the win, and I'm not complaining. If you know my thoughts on Melbourne, good on you, Manly. What a win. And as for Canterbury Bankstown, from what I've read in the comment section and on social media, everyone said that St George were the better team for most of the game. Canterbury managed to steal it in the end in the last 2 minutes. And of course, I saw in the highlights that Lachlan Galvin scored a try, and I went, oh. And that's the reason why there's not really many pictures on this particular video about Canterbury, because of fucking Lachlan Galvin. Every fucking picture that I look at in the last 24 to 48 hours of Canterbury, because I'm trying to put one on for this video, they've all got fucking Lachlan Galvin in it. I can't fucking stand the cunt. He's a fucking weird head-shaped little cunt with a fucking bad haircut. And even in that game where he scored the try, Stephen Crichton did all the fucking hard work. He was just backing up on the inside. So a big deal. But for this game, who do I think is going to win? It's going to be a tough one to call. Because with Manly, they're a team that, you know, they can put in a performance like that as they did against Melbourne. And with Canterbury, I'm pretty sure that match against St George was a bit of a wake-up call in some regards, to show that, look, you know, we can be beaten, or we are a little bit vulnerable in certain aspects. But I think for this match, look, I'm going to tip Canterbury again. I'm going to go for Canterbury to win by 1 to 12 points. However, I think that Manly's going to really give them a game on Sunday. So that concludes my video for round 21 of the 2025 NRL season. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know who you're tipping and all the margins in that caper. Thanks to everyone that watched my video last week. It was one of the most watched tipping videos on YouTube. Thanks to everyone that takes their time out of the day to watch my channel, even if it is for a couple of minutes. Thanks to everyone that's tuned in and watched. So anyway, this has been Rugby League History. Tatty bye for now.